Is there any sadness sadder than when we are in conflict with our kid? And I'm not talking about, a toddler who's throwing a temper tantrum, or even a young adolescent who's maybe stomping around. I'm talking about, those older teens, the young adults, the adult children who decide for whatever reason they're just pissed at you and they don't want to have anything to do with you, or they keep you at arm's length, or they've decided that, you know what, you're just too hard to be around and I can't do it anymore. Hey everyone, it's Ann O'Connor from Metamorphics. I'm here with you today to talk about a really hard subject, and I think it's really vital though, and it's really important. So I want to talk about how do we love an imperfect kid. And let me first just say that I think that every imperfect kid is really perfect. And that when we have conflict with our kids, the pain is so enormous and the heartbreak is so omnipresent that sometimes the only thing that it seems like there is to do is to push back and say, okay, fine. I'll go on with my life. You go on with yours. I don't need that kind of disrespect in my life. Have you completely forgotten about what it means to be like your mother, your father? I've been doing a lot of work lately in researching these relationships between adult children and their parents. And I have seen so much pain when there is conflict in these relationships. And I know all about this pain because I've been on both sides of this coin. So my father and I had a lot of conflict, both as I was growing up and as an adult. For a while, I did that very thing where I said, you know what, Dad, no more. I'm not going to do this with you. And then I figured out a different way, and I came back to him, but I set some really clear boundaries and was able to have a relationship with him. And when he died, I was one of just 2 of the kids in my family who were actively speaking and engaged with him out of the 5. So I know about it from that perspective, and I also know about it as a parent and as a step-parent. I remember the time when my stepson went away and did not contact me, did not call me. I didn't know where he was. And it just weighs on your heart so heavily and so deeply that it's hard to, for somebody who hasn't had that experience, it's hard to imagine how all-encompassing it is and how difficult it is when somebody you love so much won't deal with you. And then my oldest daughter, who is now 21 and is now like, we are so golden and so good, and we get along so well. But I'll tell you what, during these years of, 14 to 17 or so, it was hell, folks. It was just really hell. And I had to hang on to my hat and love her anyway. And when she was doing her best to fight and spit and push me away as much as she possibly could. So I have experience from the child side, and I have experience from the parent side, and it's not pretty, right? Like, it's either way, it's just not pretty. So what do we do, right? What do we do when our hearts are so heavy and we want something? That's where I was at. I wanted so much to have my child back. I wanted them to know that I loved them, and I think I also had such an extra burden because I didn't want to repeat the mistakes of my father. I was like, wait a minute, I can't possibly just keep this pattern going in my family, right? And I wanted to do it differently, and I felt like, aren't I smarter than this? Do I have to repeat the mistakes of my father with my kids? Do we have to continue this endless cycle of pain and suffering in my family? No. I was willing to do almost anything for that to stop. And fortunately, I think that I've been able to get past this with my kids. And right now, all four of my kids and I are really in super solid shape. And we talk about these things. None of the things that I say here are a surprise to any of them, because we've walked through those waters, very turbulent, very rocky waters, very tough times. But now on the other side of it, what we enjoy is a lot of clarity, a lot of transparency, a lot of love. And it took a lot to get there. So I wanted to just reflect, because today I was out in the world and I was waiting for somebody, and I ended up waiting at the children's hospital. And I was watching all these families with their children, a lot of them very little children. And I was thinking of all the ways that parents love and surround and do and extend and support their children. And then sometimes when it goes sour, all of that feels like, wait, what happened? How could this person who I love more than life itself, the person who is like an extension of my heart, it's another limb, how can they be walking out in the world and I have nothing to do with them? How could that happen? And so I was feeling sad for all that pain. And I wanted to reflect on some of the things that worked for me, and just recognize that, it's not an easy thing. And each situation is really different, and they are definitely challenging situations. But there are some things that you can do, particularly if you're the parent in this situation where there's distance, there's conflict. Maybe there's just distance and there's not conflict. Maybe there's downright clashing, right? But some of the things that you can do as the parent in this situation is you can say to yourself, all right, what is more important to me? Is it more important to me to be right? Is it more important for me to demonstrate a moral? Is it more important for me to teach a lesson? These are the kinds of things that parents get caught up on. And is it more important to do those things than it is to love my kid? And what is love? What is love anyway? Is love deciding how your kid should be and only loving them then? Or is love saying, you are this person in the world and I love you despite the fact that we don't agree about any number of things? Despite the fact that I don't really like some of your choices. Despite the fact that sometimes I think, oh my God, how could this person be the person I raised? How could they have that value when I'm the person who raised them, right? These are all the things that I hear when I listen to parents who are struggling in their relationships with their older or adult children. And it takes a lot of humility. It takes a lot of standing down to say, you know what? Maybe some of the ways that I came to my kid, whatever my intention, maybe they just didn't get it that way. Maybe the way that I came to them felt painful. Maybe the way that I came to them felt like it was harsh or over-judgmental or controlling. And these are the things that I hear from the adult children who are having conflict with their parents. And if you're a parent watching this and you're saying, yeah, but you don't understand my kid because they do this and this and this, and they're rude to me and they're disrespectful, and look, I'll get to them a different time. Right now, today, I want to talk about what you can do in your relationship with your kid. Because when our children become adults, it is no longer our responsibility to tell them how to live. It is no longer our responsibility to show them the way. It's no longer our responsibility to shape and to mold and to teach. It's just not. That's part of that letting go into adulthood and letting people be who they are, not questioning their judgments, their decisions, their choices, their failures, but allowing them to fail, allowing them their choices, allowing them to have different values and ideas about life than we do. And that is where love can begin to grow. That's where real compassion and mutual respect can begin to grow. Now, I will tell you, if you're having conflict with your adult child, and this has been going on for some time, chances are the mutual respect has disintegrated, right? And when that happens, it's very tough to get it back. And so somebody has to stand down. And that's when it comes to this question again and again. What's in it for you? What's in it for you to stand in, I am right, and this is how it has to be, and this is what is true. As long as we're standing there, we're not standing with our hand extended to our child. So I just want to say that again. As long as we are standing in, this is what's right, this is what I know, and this is how it is, we are not standing in, I love you, my child, my hand is extended, tell me more, I'm here. Those two things are incompatible. And so, it might be very challenging. I remember my father, as I mentioned earlier, when he died, 3 of his 5 children were not speaking to him. There was a couple last-minute phone calls and maybe a last-minute visit, but mostly, for most of their adult lives, my siblings didn't speak to their father. And the reason for that is my father was a very, very difficult man, and he would not stand down. And I remember one time him talking to me about my older siblings and saying, well, they don't even call me, they don't even reach out, I'm their father, what is this? And he was a real, honor your father kind of guy, and he had it in his head the way things are, and the way things should be. So he didn't have his hand out. He didn't extend out to them. He was waiting for them to make it good for him. And there was a crack in the armor at one point, and he was talking about how something they should do. And I said, you know what, Dad, it's just not your job anymore to tell them how to live. I mean, we're talking they're in their 30s and 40s, right, folks? We're not talking about 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old kids. We're talking about full-grown adults with adult lives and adult responsibilities and adult careers and adult decisions. And yet my father still had this idea that he should be the one to pass judgment and to say what's right and what's wrong and how to live. And I was like, look, you know what? I get that this is so hard for you. You haven't made the transition into your adult children yet. And that's not your job anymore to tell them what's right and what's wrong. It's not your job. And he was flabbergasted. He was like, well, what do you mean that's not my job? What do you mean? What am I supposed to do? And I was like, Dad, you know what you're supposed to do? You're supposed to just love them. That's what you're supposed to do. It's not your job to make them right or wrong. It's not your job to decide whether their life is the life that they should be leading. It's not your job anymore to teach them any more lessons. And if, by the way, you were going to teach them any lessons, the way that you would do that is by demonstrating compassion. It's by demonstrating love. It's by demonstrating that you have a life worth following. It's by demonstrating that you're not about control. It's by demonstrating that you are somebody who's worthy of respect. Somebody who is worthy of their, forgiveness. And I say this because, and I know right now that there are many, many parents, because I've talked to enough of them to know, I've worked with them enough to know that there's many parents right now who are saying, forgiveness, I'm not the one who, they don't need to forgive me, I need forgiveness. So this is what I'm saying about somebody needs to stand down. Everybody needs forgiveness in this situation, okay? You want to stand in you being right? You want to die on that hill? Because people do. People die on that hill without ever making it up with their kids. And if that's where you want to go, you're welcome to do that. There are many, many people who do. I suggest that not be you. You don't have to do it that way. And, I got to tell you, when our kids are absent from us, when they're pushing us away, there's no bigger heartache than that. And so you can decide that there is something worth doing around this issue. And so here's some things I want to suggest to you. If you're looking for more respect from your kid, give more respect to your kid. If you're looking for forgiveness from your kid, forgive your kid first. If you're looking for more compassion about, hey, I did the best that I could do. I know I hurt you. I'm sorry, but why don't you understand that I tried my best? I did what I could do. Why don't you see how hard I tried? You know what? That's not for your kid to figure out. Eventually, if they can get to the point where they can see you without the control and without the idea that you're right, that you think you're right all the time, they'll get there. I promise you they will. But if they come to you and you're right there with what it's about for you, this is one situation in which, well, it's not just one, but this one situation, more than any other situation, is not rational. Your child and your relationship is very different than other relationships. Now, these tools will work in other relationships just as well, but there is something particular about a child and parent relationship. And the parent maybe thinks that a lot of parents still think that they should have some control or say in their adult child's life. And an adult child, many, many times, still thinks that they get to treat their parent however they want, and that their parent will just be there. So these are some things that we have to learn about each other, and it's neither one of those things are true. So all you can do is be the person who stands down, and whatever you're looking for, what you're asking for in that relationship, make sure that you're giving that too. Make sure that you're giving that first. Make sure that you're the one who is providing that in that relationship. And then the second thing that I would say is be gentle. Be gentle with yourself. Be gentle with this person. I know a lot of times these relationships, they just flare. And when you get together, no matter how well-intentioned, I've talked to so many people who are going to go into this, I'm going to be calm, I'm going to be steady, I'm going to be loving. And then what happens, right? There's just one comment from your kid and you're off to the races and you're back into this really problematic dynamic between a parent and a child, right? Most of us are familiar with that dynamic. If you're having conflict, you can go right back to it. It's like you can get out the playbook and go, okay, go to page 36 and you read your lines, I'll read mine, right? So don't do that. Interrupt it in some way. And this is hard work, so I would recommend getting some help. And if it's not a coach, if it's not a coaching program, get some help. We do better as parents when we have support, universally. We really do. Even if you're just reading a book about parenting, we do better. So get some help on it and just go really gently for yourself and for your kid, because this dynamic is hard to shift. It's hard to shift. And if you've been in this, some parents I know have been in this for years, and they've lost their kid for years. And so that's not going to heal quickly. So be patient. Be patient. We are tender human beings. No matter how vicious and fighting and spitting it may appear in any particular moment, we are tender, and we require tenderness. So keep that in mind, both for yourself and for the person you love. And, some of the things that you can say are like, look, I love you too much to fight with you. I just have to take a breather, right? And walk away for 20 minutes, calm down, and come back. Just keep coming back. Keep coming back. Keep coming back to love. Keep coming to compassion. Keep coming back to respect. Do your part to take care of what you bring to the relationship. Own the stuff that you've done wrong, because you probably have. Unless you're like somehow a super parent, you've probably hurt people. That's the way it works. And so you can't if you get yourself all bunched up about that, the fact is that you're going to have a hard time. You have to realize, as parents, we hurt our children. We do. That's how it is. We don't intend to. It's the last thing that we'd ever want to do. But I haven't met a parent yet who hasn't hurt their kid. So you're going to have to get your head around that. And when you can get your head around that and you can accept that, then you can start doing something about it. And That doesn't negate all the work that you've done. It doesn't negate your love. It doesn't negate the support, but it is the reality. So stay in the reality, stay with honest eyes, cut yourself some slack, cut your kids some slack, and go to it, y'all. Love your kid right now, because life is short, and pretty soon we're not going to all be here together. So take care of this now. That's what I've got for you today. Go out and love your kid, love yourself, love your life. Ann O'Connor, signing off.